Great.
And I am calling the February 5th meeting of the Tax Relief Evaluation Task Force to order. It is 7 o'clock, and I see that we have 5 of us present. Hopefully John and Abby will be able to join us shortly. Thank you all for being here this evening on this cold night. First order of business this evening is to review the minutes that were circulated, the minutes for our January 22nd meeting. I wasn't sure that Carlin was on our meeting last time.
You said that.
Anyone have a
I had thought she was
recollection?
on at the end, but I could be wrong. I neglected the notes that,
So I would suggest taking that out. I don't believe she was there.
Sure.
I mean, it's not huge. More substantively, on the second page, under report preparation, we've written, as drafts are completed, they will be placed in meeting packets with public discussion of suggested changes occurring in open meetings. Ellen and I had an exchange about this. My feeling is that drafts do not go in meeting packets. I'm leery of draft because some of the information we put in our drafts isn't right, and we don't really want to be circulating things until we know we've got it right. Well,
What I heard from Carrie Terry from the clerk was actually Laura Austin, who's kind of like the person here, is that it's up to us.
Okay.
And I kind of agree with Lynn that it's great to include drafts when they're final, but sometimes drafts when they're like just drafts might be I don't know, might be distractive to the public. And so the thought is whatever we actually show in a meeting is public record. But the actual, whatever we share amongst ourselves doesn't necessarily have to be public record. Does it make sense to people?
Mm-hmm. It does.
Okay, great.
And I agree with you more broadly.
Okay, cool.
About not sharing drafts until we're further along.
Yes, absolutely. It's that will get very messy, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So let's try to amend that sentence, Rich, in some way.
Cool.
As drafts are completed, they will be discussed publicly.
Be discussed in open meetings.
That's right.
Cool.
Then there's an incomplete sentence in the middle of the next paragraph, which I didn't catch when I was reviewing it. And most towns not reflecting elder reliance on assets for incomes during retirement. Is that supposed to be a period? Maybe that's the problem instead of a comma. The senior means tested exemption is available and is better targeted to those in need, but the current asset limits are quite low in Concord and most towns. Yeah, so that should be a period. And then the last sentence in that paragraph talks about.
Well, no, actually, that the parenthesis was deliberate, although I'm not saying.
I'm not saying get rid of the parentheses, but I think it should be a period after that.
After retirement.
Yeah.
After the parenthesis.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree that's a typo.
And though I wouldn't change the minutes, the last sentence in that paragraph, members asked if there's any way of knowing how many households in Concord received the circuit breaker on the state income tax. Meredith was asked by Ellen and didn't have that data. Turns out I had found a table that presents historical information from 2001 when the circuit breaker was initiated through preliminary data in 2022. And that's the most recent information we have. Meredith has nothing more. So that's just FYI. It's reflected in my draft. But we don't need to change the minutes. Did anyone else have comments on the minutes? And if not, can I have a motion to approve as suggested, as amended?
Hello?
Second.
Raise hands if you're online. I believe that's a unanimous vote, though. There we go. Thank you very much. Done. I don't have a chair's report per se. Ellen, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to report.
I'm sorry, maybe I was the last chair's meeting. There are many, no, sorry.
Yeah,
not
we
specific.
heard about the chair's breakfast the last time. In which case, can we move to a discussion? I know there's been some efforts at reaching out to landlords, and I'd love to hear how that's going or how that went.
Perfect, yeah.
I will be speaking with John. John Boynton has been on vacation. He and I are speaking next week.
Okay.
Perfect.
I never heard back from, I reached out twice back to Period Realty and I haven't heard back from them. From my initial discussion that she said she would forward everything on to the two owners. She was the business manager. And I've reached back out and I still have not heard anything. So I'll reach out again tomorrow and see if I can get any kind of update, but beyond, what she kind of just told me on the phone, I don't have anything from the owners.
Which complex was that, Kathy?
I talked to Period Realty.
Period.
Period Realty.
Yeah, they own a lot of homes in Concord. They have like 350 apartment units. They already have affordable units in Warner Woods, and they actually take Section 8 housing. They already do that. I kind of talked to her about with a business manager, trying to get an idea of the age they rent to or some of that stuff, and she kind of wouldn't give me answers. I talked to her about, tried to ask her about the Section 50, and from her perspective, she wasn't interested in it, but she said she would want to talk to the owners more because they would understand the property tax valuation about it. So
Yeah.
Are the
I don't really
owners
have any more
local
info.
by any chance?
Sorry, what?
Are the owners local by any chance?
Yeah. They're all in Concord. Yeah.
And do we know who they are? Is it possible to get to them directly?
They're Will and Jim Guy DiGiovanni. They're the DiGiovanni family. I don't know if anybody else has heard of them. I don't know them specifically, so I can try.
Sorry, what are the first names again?
Isn't it Will and Jim? The DiGiovannis, yeah. The sons own it now because Guy passed away and gave, left everything to the kids, and they all run it now.
I mean, I can talk to them, one of my former neighbors, but I'm not sure that they are as, I'm not sure I will have great success, but I will try.
Yeah, if you want to send them to my way. Oh, it's Vincent
I
and
will.
Jim.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's
I
not
will try.
Will.
Because
Send them
they're
my
like,
way.
they used to live across the street from me.
Yeah.
John, maybe
kids,
when you're
not the-
talking to John Boynton, maybe you can ask for another contact or two.
Right.
Yeah, I will. I absolutely will.
That's great, John. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so I think our main topic tonight, at least as far as I'm concerned, is to look at the outline that I've circulated for the final report. We've got bits and pieces coming in, which we'll shift to in a moment, discussion of which we'll shift to in a moment. But I'd like to get a sense from this group as to how the different pieces that we see coming together. In my mind, I had imagined that there would be an introduction that talks about the charge, basically repeats the charge from the select board, leads us into the research questions, and then how we laid out our work. So a broad overview of methodology. Then I'm imagining a context section, and I don't know how deep to go on this. I circulated a few tables to give you a flavor of the kinds of background information we could include, tables on tax rates, tables on tax bills, tables on spending trends for the town and schools. I don't know how much of a primer we want to have in that section about how spending drives taxes.
Yeah. One of the things I think is really important in this section, this is about funding, but I think one of the things that we did in the select board presentation was, what are the demographics? And so I would love to see the demographics in terms of, I don't know if I can, Rich, you can help me with the, average ages in Concord and renters versus homeowners. But I think that one of the things that really strikes me when I look, well, actually, when John and I have looked at the data, like, oh my gosh, it is about the demographics of the distribution, as Lynn, you've said, of the house values. And the biggest bulk that really drives the non-efficiency in the RTE is houses between 1 and 2.5 that break even. So I think it'd be great to have in this section kind of like, not just the background, but like, what is the housing stock? Something there that says, here's the housing stock and maybe, I don't know where we do it, but somewhere in here, the perfect storm about the assessment. But
Right.
Katie, you had a wonderful section in your piece that I think the perfect storm would fit really well. But I think that we need to do where do people live, which is the 1.5 million, and what does that mean? And that is why the RT, in my view, and John pipe in, does
Yep.
not work well, right?
Yep.
So I certainly think, especially now having read the section that Abby and Kathy put together, I
Yeah.
think that's part of our context, right? To describe the
Yeah.
real estate market, the incredibly tight supply of affordable homes, the incredibly strong demand for living in Concord. I think
Yeah.
that's all part of the context. So I would put that in that section. I think the perfect storm discussion that we presented to the select board several months ago, I think that's part of the context.
Yeah.
The only reason I have some question in my mind is this could easily become 10 or more pages.
No. But I think we can make it. I mean, Kathy will help us because she's a great writer. I think we can make it simple. Kathy, I'm sorry, you really are. We can make it simple. I think it's a point of like what matters, what's driving it, and what are we seeing? And I think, in my humble opinion, one of the real drivers is that most people, 50% of people, live in houses between 1 and 1.5 million, the break even in bed, the break even. And that is why the RTE is problematic. And if we just kind of focus on that, I think that'd be really great.
And the numbers you're citing now are coming from the survey or coming from our assessment?
No. What we initially presented to the select board, do you remember we had that, I know it was like 89% of people are below the break even and 49 are between 1.1 million. I think we can just kind of lay it out. The problem is we have a lot of people. I don't want to go into the details, but rather that if you have to, let me just back it up. John, like, help me out. If we want to cover all low-income people, we have a scattershot, which means people in the 1 to 1 point, the 2 point, the break even have to be covered, and many of them are high income, right, John?
That's right. That's right. We have to cast the net so wide that
Exactly.
it ends up capturing a large portion of people who are not in need.
So I'm differentiating in my mind between a descriptive contextual section and then the analytical section that John and Ellen
Yep.
wrote.
No. I got it. But I think that one of the things that's an important demographic is, Lynn, you said this, the distribution of house values in town.
Yep.
Very wide, and that there's 49% of between 1 and 2.45 million. I think we can lay that out
Sure.
as a context and then later say, what's the implication? That's what I'd love to do.
And Lynn, I'm happy to work with Ellen on just pulling together a few different like demographic data cuts and maybe
totally.
Rich as well, just so we're
I'm a little confused because demographics to me means age information, but I think what you're
No. I mean, maybe demographics and housing stock. How about that?
all right. So I'm going to start working on this section. I'm going to
Great.
incorporate what Kathy and Abby have put together. John, are you still hoping to do anything with ACS data, or should we not?
I mean, I can do something with it, but honestly, I'm not sure what are we trying to get from it at this point in time because
Yeah.
I don't. I'm
That we
happy to
can't
do the
already get.
analysis. It will take some time and effort. And if there's a clear reason to do it, I'll do it.
Well, I see two reasons, one of which is to show that Concord is or is not like similar towns in terms of where the people who need help are, both in terms of housing value and income. In other words, is it a problem that's unique to us that we're, inefficient in the subsidy if we do it the way we have done? Or is it, the fact that if you want to get to low-income people who are not elderly in any town, you wind up having to do an RT, low-income owners.
Okay. Well, Rich, why don't I follow? Why don't you and I follow up? I'm happy to do the analysis
Sure,
if,
yeah,
if,
I
if it's
mean, but
important.
to me,
And I know we've talked about various analysis cuts before, so
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got the data. I can do the analysis. If
I
people
would
see
just
it's
go back
additive.
to the tables that we originally spec 6 months ago
Yeah.
and see if you can run them. And then, see if we can condense that to a page of what we found out. You know, any RTE is inherently inefficient if it's effective.
yeah. And I would ask that please connect him with what Abby and Kathy have done in terms of the overall real estate market, which has some really stunning observations about affordability. So but maybe that could be afterwards, but I think that one of the things that Lynn and I were talking about is to integrate all this stuff and not get things repetitive. And I think that the real estate um, market report and probably what the survey report shows and other analytics could be really reinforcing of one another.
Yeah, and that's where the compilation and then the editing is going to come in, which
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
I'm happy to take a stab at. So that to me is another section. Then I'm imagining, Kathy, you had written a 4-pager, which I didn't distribute this week. We got it last time.
Yeah.
That was kind of an introduction to the RTE. And I was then thinking in the last week about the RTE explainer sheet that you drafted for the survey that was available if people wanted extra information. Is it possible that was done before the FY 2026 numbers came out? So it's easy enough to update for the current fiscal year's numbers. And I'm wondering if we can take that explainer sheet and the 4 pages that you drafted and have a short chapter on the RTE explained, how it works, who qualifies, the application process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to go in there.
It's got to be somewhere, right?
As we know, people
Don't understand it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that would be the next section in my mind. Then Shannon, I turn to you. I think the work that folks did in the early stages of this task force, reaching out to people and doing qualitative interviews, taught us so much. And I know you've started to put something together. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what this section should look like.
I mean, I think the purpose of our work was twofold. So I think one, we should describe what we did, obviously, but also describe that it was used as a refinement tool, in a subsequent analysis to get to our survey and make sure it was designed properly. So I do think I haven't written that up well, but I think the second part is that we should identify, and I guess where I don't know is like how we want to work in the open-ended survey results. And I know I got sort of off track with my medical leave to figure out where we are with that. And so I don't know whether we want to present independent findings from, the N of 20 or 19 or whatever it was, qualitative survey results saying like these helped us inform the survey, or if we want to present them and say like this is what we found and some of them are consistent with the survey and present the survey open-ended with, like, I don't know how integrated you want them to be. And so
I think that would be great.
The same story in particular or similar, which it looked to me like it was a similar piece, then I don't know what work has been done. Sorry, Ellen, I don't know what work has been done to look through those, but I'm happy to try to like integrate them in, but I didn't know if we wanted them. And so I didn't know if there was another narrative. Often we will use qualitative to explain a quantitative finding. Like we have a quantitative piece and we don't know what to do with it, or we don't really know what it means, then we'll integrate the quant and the qual. But I'm also happy to have this sort of standalone and pull in the survey open end or verbatim. So I would love some input from the group, and then I could do another.
So I have not, I'm sorry, I've not like thought about, so what are the questions that have really, high insight in terms of verbatims, but I think maybe Shannon, you and I can meet, because I think that that's a great concept. The verbatims answer a lot of questions like, why are you going to move out of town? Or why don't you like the RTE? Or why are you housing stressed? And I think that your qualitative interviews and the verbatims and the survey can kind of like meld together in terms of here's what we hear, not the data, because I think data is great, but sometimes I think the more persuasive aspect, I'm sure you're saying you get this, are the quotes.
Yes, of course.
Right.
I agree. So I think what I could
Okay.
do as an
Yeah.
interim step is I could take a look at the survey
Oh,
verbatim,
awesome. Okay, great.
and then I could try to get whatever I feel like thematically works with what we found in the qualitative, and then I could get some quotes under some themes, knowing that we're then mixing like the people, there are different data sources. So
Right.
it's actually kind of nice because it's triangulation is what we would call it at work. Okay.
Mhm.
And put the two data sources together, but I don't see them as necessarily explain like the other choice, which it would be like you explain something quantitatively and then you're like, and then you follow qualitatively with like what would explain the quantitative result. And I don't know, to me, that seemed like the lesser likely path, but I just wanted, before I went too deep, I wanted to check in on people's thoughts on that. That this would be a section that would integrate the open-ended response from a survey and the qualitative interviews, but wouldn't, and would explain from a bottom-up perspective, like what we heard from people, but wouldn't necessarily have a one-to-one connection from an explanatory standpoint of the survey results.
I'm
That-
good
The
with
way
that.
I think of it, Shannon, is that this section that if you integrate the way you're talking,
Yeah.
insights from the interviews and insights from the open-ended questions, this is the color section.
Yes,
This
but
is
it's not
section-
necessarily like, here's what we found quantitatively, and here are some of the thoughts that respond to
understand.
this question.
Yeah.
That
But I
I
think
think
it's
that's fair, Shannon.
That's good.
I think sometimes that what we really want to, and Shannon, I know you're going to get this, but we will see lots of stuff from the data, but sometimes the color, as you're saying, from the context of either your interviews or the open-ended,
Yep.
really help to explain. And I think that that's important for our
Me
report.
too. It's why we get things funded in my research lab because we do both.
Awesome. Love it. Love it.
If we go up against quant only teams all the time, and when we get mixed methods team, it's how we've stayed afloat this year with the unreliable NIH funding.
Done.
That in
Yeah,
our
great.
topic areas aren't like straight up about, I don't know, controversial topics. So
No, I think that the qual stuff really helps to provide the color that will, we don't want to make the qual, the qual will explain the quant.
it will, but
In my
not as
opinion.
a one-to-one, not like
No. I
finding
think the
I just
qual
want to make sure
provides the
it's not-
color that the quant
Yes,
needs.
and we're going to
So,
present
right?
both
Right. Yeah.
like there will be opposite opinions that will both be presented per se, or like things that are just
Yeah.
right, because there's not one voice. We
That's
don't
right.
have a single
And I think that the town of Concord, there's a lot of controversy about
Right.
this. And so if we can provide the qual, the voices, I think our report will be more credible, in my humble opinion.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna look through the
Great.
survey results, put
Okay.
some of the quotations in thematically into the qualitative interview results and add that into our methods and then get it back out to you. But I didn't want to go too deep before we understood.
That
Awesome.
sounds great.
Right, that's my task.
So then moving on to the next
Can I
section.
ask a
Oh,
question
sorry, go ahead.
Before we move
Mhm.
on, and that is the qual and the long form answers in the survey really break into two parts, some of which is just, the facts, and some of it, are you stressed and how does that
Yeah.
manifest itself? And some of them are attitude. I mean, particularly even people who are paying the RTE who say, oh, that's okay. And conversely, people who think it's, fundamentally a poor principle. And I'm just wondering whether we want to mix those two, because really, the quantitative facts that come out of the survey and the data analysis have backup qualitative findings. And then there are attitudes that basically we have some survey data and qualitative.
So one of the things that Kathy, you mentioned like very early meeting was what can I, Ellen, provide some verbatims that the team can assess about answers to some questions. And I think maybe, Rich and you and I can get together on some of those because it's not obvious about what questions one might assess, but I think there's lots of questions in the survey that are verbatim that could help. And I'd say some of the things I saw in the survey that, the data stuff was kind of like not useful, but I believe that the verbatims can add a lot, but I think that I need to think about them. And so Kathy, Rich, anyone wants to help me, I'd appreciate that. In other words, how do I parse out the verbatims in terms of, what I'm asking for people to look at?
But I guess the conclusion here is for the section that Shannon's writing,
Yeah.
try and split attitude from fact, but it would cover both of them.
But there's lots of stuff there. Anyway, I'll next meeting I'll try to
I
think
hear
about
you,
it.
Rich, that you want the finding heading to be clear about whether, making sure that people's perception is indicated. And I will make sure that it is
No,
writ-
I guess
written
the
in.
thing I'm particularly thinking about is the extent to which there's support here among people who may not even be benefiting from it. And people who, are opposed to it in principle. But
So let me think about also the kind of broader concept about who, the overall aspects about who supports, who does not support the RT, and find a way to kind of like parse out the open-ended, the verbatims to kind of get some more context because I think it's very nuanced.
Okay.
The lack of understanding of the RTE is critical to consider when you think about the amount of support for it.
I was gonna say,
Right, and
if
it's
you don't
also lack of
understand
understanding.
something, it's hard to say a majority of people support it or don't, since they don't understand the concept.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, I would tell me anyone who wants to work with me about how to parse out the verbatims. Not perfect.
Ellen, I
but-
thought we just agreed that Shannon was going to take a cut at the verbatims, that you don't need to
Okay.
worry about them. And
Whatever.
the two of you can coordinate on it, but I think it's important for you not to have to write everything up.
No, it's not just that. I just think that many people might have an opinion. Shannon, we'll talk.
I'm
Thank you.
happy. All I want to do is make like forward progress. I'm happy to get you a draft and have you add stuff or take your own quotations or say we need to explain stuff or work
I'm
together.
just,
But
yeah,
I think from a
I'm just
writing
saying, yeah.
perspective,
All I'm
I'm
saying is that the context in some of the stuff is complicated. So I believe maybe Shannon, John, and I can really knock it out of the park. So let's do it.
I will start with the first draft and get one to both of you.
Yeah,
then,
okay,
So
yeah.
that there's some writing so that I feel like I'm doing my fair share of writing, and two, so that you guys can get something that's like some sense making, and you can be like, this isn't the right sense making, or these aren't the right concepts, or like
Okay,
quote
great.
that I think is most
Okay.
interesting.
Is that possible for you to do in the next 2-week period, Shannon?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
So then I know, John and Ellen, you're spending the bulk of your time parsing what the survey is trying to tell us. There's a lot of data there. You've built a lot of graphs so far. Is it possible by the next meeting to maybe have a set of bullets from you per each graph? What is the key insight you're drawing from each set of analysis? I'm trying to slowly bring you to the point where we have a written narrative about the numbers.
John,
over to you.
Oh, no, John. Okay, yes, we will. I think that the bottom line, and John will, we kind of like, we agree but don't agree about everything, which is why we're such a great pair. The RTE is effective. It reaches like most everybody that we're supposed to with low income, but it's wickedly inefficient. And so we are trying to kind of quantify that. And the other number two is who benefits $3.2 million of tax rebates, reductions for people. And so who is paying that? And so John and I are really working hard to figure out who is, renters, et cetera. And so I think
separate from the survey, just to be clear.
Yes. And so just to be clear, we have various sources. One is a survey, which helps us understand the difference between maybe correlate house values and income. And remember, we did not know how to do that before. And then the assessor data helps us understand who qualified for the RT and who did not, meaning who paid more and who paid less.
Do we have any of that data from Meredith yet on the,
Exactly. And Meredith's been wonderful.
do you have it, the data on who's that the 2.9 of people who,
Yeah, I can send that to you if you want. Yeah, a
It's-
lot of a lot of information, but I can send you my spreadsheet. But we had to like parse it out in terms of what does it mean by a lot of different demographics.
And Ellen and I focused a lot on the landlord piece in particular, given the renter impact. And any way we look at it, I think we've got a pretty good estimate of how, in terms of a range of how the landlords are impacted.
All right. Again, that's another set of analysis that is important.
Exactly.
But I want to make exploiting to the max the information from the survey. There's a lot
What?
of other questions in there, right? About are you
Exactly. And so my question to you, Lynn, is here's my question. I can write what we have not ever talked about is a section, it's kind of in the Lexington survey about the survey demographics process, et cetera, which I can write up. And then basic, basic.
There's a
I don't know.
methodology section to be written, absolutely, but that's not the bulk of what I'm looking for. What
I'm
I'm
sorry.
hoping is for each question in the survey that gives us numbers, that we have a graph and a narrative that
Well, I guess,
Lynn,
Lynn,
I'm
Lynn, I
sorry.
would ask you
What's the
this.
point?
I'm not sure that's how the document should be written. The survey supports the document. So we should leverage the data from the survey to inform our recommendations, not try to write a report that supports our survey.
No,
So
Well,
we
but
have
if
a
I
lot
don't-
of documents. Lynn, let me talk. The survey has like a gazillion, like I can write, 30 pages about the survey and the results, but I'm not sure it's relevant. And to John's point, I think we need to focus on what did the survey tell us? What were we surprised about in the survey? And maybe a bunch of stuff that, we didn't anticipate. And, John and I were trying to work on this. We don't always agree, but we're a great pair. And I think that's what we need to do. Please.
No one is asking for anything but that. I just want to make
Okay,
sure that we exploit what's in the survey, that we
Yeah,
get
yeah.
our insights from all the questions we asked.
and I think what you're suggesting is not a bad way to proceed. That the key graphs from the survey data and the bullet points that
Yeah.
they appear to support. I think that's a good place to start our discussion. Because it's one of the things is we're having great fun wallowing around in the data, but we haven't even touched what we think the conclusions are
Right.
or the recommendations to the select board, and that's probably right. But I think having those graphs and this is what the graph tells you kinds of bullet points are a good idea.
Well, you asked a question this week, Rich, about the extent to which people under the age of 65 are housing cost constrained. The survey ought to be able to give us those insights.
No, hold on, Lynn. John and I can talk ad infinitum about this. We had a real problem with our using 30% of housing cost constrained across the income. Abby, please help me out here. That it's fine if you're in maybe $100,000, but if you have earned $300,000 a year and your housing costs are 300%, 30% of your income, you still have a really large disposable income. John, please pipe in here because I think that we struggle with that big time.
Fully agreed.
Right?
Fully agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I like your idea, you can run it both ways. You can run 30% and say, but X of these are people who actually have incomes above 200,000.
Yeah.
And then you can run it at, you proposed 150, which is not.
And so I think one of the things they're trying to figure out is, I think I've lost my train of thought here, is how does the survey help us understand the baseline? John, go ahead.
I was going to say, how about this as in the interim? Why don't we chart up the individual responses to
Yeah.
all the survey questions? I think a lot of them will end up being appendixes in the appendix, but at least people can see the answers to them, and it will inform what we're doing more broadly, right? That might be the best way to do it.
That's a great start. Yes.
And please, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm joking here. Some of the questions were totally bogus in terms of they were not representative. So Shannon, I will ask you to help me in terms of things that say, okay, not quite. But I think it's really important for us to present the results of a survey. That was a big part of what we did, how we advertise, et cetera, and the results. I'm sorry, I'm joking here.
I would agree, and just to chime in on
Thank you, Abby.
it seems like we're just back to that key thing we were talking about. I remember many meetings ago
Yeah.
about affordability. What is the definition of affordability, and what can be uncomfortable for some. It's kind of like, what is stress? What makes you uncomfortable? I mean, there are people in the above the median who are uncomfortable trying to make the ends meet to pay those taxes because they bought the home when it was affordable, and now because of taxes it's become unaffordable.
Yeah.
So there's different things happening as far as affordability goes. If we look at that 30%, or I had put in two different metrics that mortgage brokers use for what is affordable. There's sort of some different definitions of affordability by just the math of, do you have enough to pay your bills? But obviously, some people, you could have one person who took on a new home that's out of what they can really afford. After they've moved there for a year, the taxes go up and suddenly they can't afford it. But you also could have somebody who bought the home in 1970 and now the home is worth so much. The taxes went up 30% and suddenly they don't have the cash flow to afford the home. There's different reasons why something becomes unaffordable. And I don't think we're here to say, shame on you for either situation. I just think it's sort of, we need to be careful not judging what means affordability for different people.
And I think that we can't necessarily model that, to your point, Abby. I mean, I see lots of data, but I feel like, just what you said, Shannon's interviews, I interviewed some people who said exactly what you said. They bought their house early and they couldn't afford it, or, they decided to buy the best possible house for their kids and now they regret it. I mean, there's a lot of, I think we should try to be neutral in our judgments. Big time. We should try to be neutral in our, maybe not a judgment, maybe that, in our assessment.
We also did ask people to self-declare whether they feel housing cost constrained.
But I mean, honestly, that was bogus. Everyone I can show the results, but they were, John, you can pipe in.
Agreed.
They were
The
nuts.
data, it highlights the housing cost constraint data we got back, highlights the issue with housing cost constraint being utilized across income brackets. It really, I was skeptical at first when Ellen highlighted this, but if you're trying to understand people who we're trying to help, I don't think we're trying to help someone who's spending 300, who earns 400 grand a year, happens to have a $8 million mansion or something like that, right?
Of course not.
So that's why housing cost constraint as a percentage does not work at the higher income levels. I think the lower income, the income cut on its own is the way to think about it.
All right. Well,
I think we have like really great data, and I think that we need to, as a team, be Abby, John, and I, and Kathy, please figure out, think about how to parse it. I think we have a lot of insights we can offer to the select board without disparaging people's position in our town. Right, Lynn?
all right. So I would like to see something that I can begin to weave together by the end of next week.
No, you're not going to get it. I'm sorry, you aren't going to get it.
Well, we need to be able to distribute for the 19th meeting.
But Lynn, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say this right out, and then people can disagree with me. But I think we are really, I mean, I have not written anything, and I've done, I can't tell you many times how many hours John can attest to this. I have spent on Excel spreadsheets to try to figure out what the survey says. So I don't think we're near completion. I get it.
Not even a
But I
list
think
of
that
bullets that highlight insights from some of the
no,
people.
Lynn, I think so I'm gonna send this, I'm gonna put this out. This was my opinion. I don't think we're gonna meet the March 30th deadline. Maybe, but not possibly, at least from my section and John's section. John, please pipe up because maybe you disagree.
What?
And I don't,
We open
I
it
don't
to
think
the
we-
broader group's perspective. I mean, I guess I don't know that March 30th is a hard deadline.
Yeah.
I know that it was set, but if it was, all right, have it by April 15th, I think the quality would be better.
Look, 2
And,
weeks.
and so it's more, I mean, sorry, Lynn, two questions. This is a big deal because I know that the people in this team, bless them, have committed only until March 31st. So we don't know if people in this team
So
are
I
willing to
thought
go
we were
beyond
until,
that.
just to be clear, and I set meetings, I looked at it and I swear it says April 30th somewhere.
yeah,
But
I've
I
like
mean, my
sent this
point
email
is that
4 times. I thought we were until April 30th. I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't care. But I just wanted to be clear. I sent this email and sent meetings out till April 30th because some document I have says our task force goes till April 30th. I assumed the report was due, but then we needed to do something else. I wasn't sure. But anyway, I'm not trying to make it muddier than it is, and I'm flexible, but I just, for whatever reason, I read something that said April 30th.
Look, is it fair to look at the survey and throw out irrelevant things that didn't give
Yes.
us enough information that
Yes.
it just doesn't actually highlight anything? It's just pieces and parts.
Yes, I mean,
And
Abby, you're
to take
totally
out-
right.
Yeah, to take out
But
the,
please understand, I have spent, I can't tell you, John can tell you how many hours I've spent, 3 surveys with 300 lines each, trying to
Yeah.
figure this out. And it's not that I don't care about it, it's just that I want it to be accurate. And John and I are
So
really
echoing
great
that,
partners.
Ellen has done an incredible job of driving the heart of the analysis, and I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
And I think hopefully we can get a couple more weeks to
Yeah.
make sure we get it to the spot where we want to get it. And I don't know if March 30th was a deadline that was driven specifically by something, or if it was just set out there, or to Shannon's point, if actually the deadline's, April 30th or whatever.
so let me ask you this, because one of the things that, I mean,
Yeah.
our charge is to get to a place of
Exactly. Yeah.
recommending things. Are we relying on, from your just kind of step back from the survey, from all the work you've done on it, and look at it a little further back, is there information from the survey that is going to tip the scale on our recommendations? Or do we think that we are already getting to recommendations that we can start to form, and the survey is just going to support that? Or do we not know?
I think we know the story, Ellen, and catch me on this, but I think Ellen and I think the numbers we need to make sure that the specific numbers are exactly right. But I think the story's accurate, if that makes sense.
And it's lining
Yes.
up with some of these other data points that we have?
Everything,
Or
the data that we've seen, the data that we saw previous, everything seems to be lining up. I'm not surprised by anything we saw.
So
Okay.
we are saying, Abby and John will bear me out. We are seeing that the RTE is amazingly effective, like 90 plus% effective. But oh my gosh, in terms of number of households and dollars, it's 40 to 50% of the households or in dollars in RTE dollars are going to people who are high income. In other words, it's amazingly ineffective. And so that is the challenge. And that is what I think
so
we
it's
have to.
reaching, let me just make sure I
Does that-
understand you. It's
No, go ahead,
reaching
Abby.
the people that it needs to reach, but it is also reaching people who are
You don't need it.
And
not needing it.
And so I'm sorry, let me finish. Abby, Lynn, so Abby, the problem, you know this, it is the people who have houses between $1 and $2 million 50% of the people in Concord, these are not low-income people, but they receive the benefit of
Right.
the RT.
So this to
That is the
me is
problem,
like the
period.
survey gives us this information, but that
Yes.
we also have that information from other places. So I feel like the survey results, what I'm getting at is for timing purposes, could you continue to work through the survey, but can we move on to some of these
Bigger
know,
questions.
bigger things that we
Yes,
need
yes,
to
yes.
target so we're not hung up by let's wait for the survey.
Yeah, I don't think you need to wait for the survey. John, what do you think?
I agree with that completely.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
totally.
Although I do have one caveat to what you said, Ellen, which is very effective among low-income homeowners.
Okay, well, we will stop there because we all know, I mean, John is this Mr. Renter, no, but the RTE does not help renters, period, and that is a huge gap.
Yeah, and adding to that, landlords fund a larger portion of the RTE than
Not,
those who's-
okay, you stop there because I don't agree.
All right, landlords. I
Okay,
didn't say
and,
renters. I
and
said
at the end of
landlords.
statement, it's, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, this is about, I think we've got the basics.
You and I will align. We'll
Todd and
align.
I are the best team ever.
So in addition to the
balances.
analysis of the survey, there are also going to be sections in the report that talk about statutory and other tax relief.
Yeah, totally.
And we need to understand the whole picture, right? Not just what the numbers are telling us, but also what are the policy options available to the select board, either to target more effectively the tax relief that's being
Yeah.
offered, or to expand relief to other categories of beneficiaries. And that's where the sections that Rich and I have been drafting fit in, because we talk about the available programs and then how a selection of towns has been coping with those programs. And so, Abby, when you say, do we know enough to start to draw conclusions? One of the themes that hasn't come out from the survey yet is that there are people under the age of 65 who also need relief. And the only way they can get it right now in terms of legal tax relief options is through the RTE.
And
And so I think that we tried to begin, and it's not perfect, to assess, because we have this from the survey, how many people do we think, non-seniors who benefit the RTE, what is that number for the town? And then also, I think really interestingly then, is who might be benefited from the 41.5, which is seniors without circuit breaker seniors without the asset cap.
Yeah.
Right.
And in other words, there's lots of stuff that I think the survey can help us with. But I think we need to kind of put it all together and say, okay, all these things that we have in terms of the panoply of services or tax relief programs, which ones help what aspects of the citizenry we hope to benefit?
So would it be helpful by the next meeting for someone, and I can do this, or someone else wants to volunteer, that's fine, to begin to draft a set of, I don't know, conclusions, findings? Yeah. Rich, that would be
Yes.
great.
Yeah, that would be great. I think we need to start moving in that direction, given our timeline and our charge.
And I'm going to turn to Wendy and say, March 31, April 30, is there a strong feeling in the select board? Okay.
What did it say?
The charge says 1 year. The charge says end of March. But if we need an extra month, that's probably okay too.
End of March,
Okay.
within a month, that would be good. I'd like to do it before all the committees turn over.
Yeah. Which is
April. I mean, I'd like to get this
before town meeting.
You know what? Just different. Keep going.
Let's get the work done and get it done correctly. Okay. So I'll be the bad cop in terms of task mastering on the calendar, and you all can keep doing what you need to do to get it done right.
Can I just,
Please.
you know, one of your big improvements is that RTE is the only thing.
We can't really hear her.
Yeah, I can come.
Come.
I was just gonna say, one of the things that you're gonna say is we already know, RTE is the only tool you have to get to people under 65. Your other option and your concern over renters is that the 50 program. I really would like you to dig into those landlords and get some real factual data about what they do with rent. I mean, with the RTE, are they passing it on? Are they not? That's important. And then the other is should the select board go down the path of looking at that other program?
Right.
And we need feedback from landlords. And if you don't do it, then the select board's going to create another committee to do it. Just saying, if you can get that information, it would be helpful. I would have gone to the business roundtable to ask a little bit, but it's not been your focus so far. I just
Yeah.
want to remind you that that's one area.
And what would be the efficient way of getting on an agenda for them?
I don't, it's, I guess I would call the chair for the business roundtable and just have a conversation. If, we really want to pursue this, what's the best way? I don't know all the business roundtable, but they're the property owners in town.
Right.
Um,
Abby, are you connected to that community?
I'm not, but I can try to link into that. I mean, I mostly am doing single family residences, not rentals, but
John's
When I speak with John Boyden, I'll ask him for any other connections.
yeah, he's part of the roundtable. So he knows who the chair is there and who else could help potentially with that.
All right, so make that a priority, please, John Piper, so that we
Yeah.
can, John Boynton to help connect us.
And then, the other question I have, while we talk about 41C and loosening the asset limit,
Yeah,
that's big,
I know.
right? So when you talk about people who don't need it, I don't know what we do about that.
Right.
That's, that was just a comment, because the Board of Assessors sets that asset limit, not the select board. Just,
For
in the
the,
report, that asset limit is set by the Board of Assessors, yeah.
right, right.
For 41C only?
No, yes, on the 41C. Wait, no.
No,
No, on the
41C and a
senior
half.
means, no, on the senior means, they do the asset limit.
That's right.
So, if we're gonna look to raise that, well, we should understand what other towns do, and I know you've looked at that. But someplace in the report, I thought somebody said it was the select board's decision.
It is for 41C and a half.
Oh,
I'm
maybe
pretty
it's
sure.
for 41
And it has to be ratified
By the town.
by the town.
Yeah, no, there's the income
Town.
limits also have to be set.
The
Under
income
that
limits.
program.
Yeah,
It is
and
our-
it
it's our
doesn't have to
decision,
be,
yeah. Yeah.
Bedford's unlimited,
Yeah.
but you could deal with the IRA problem. I mean, you could make it 1 million or
Yeah.
something that will,
Yeah.
generate a R&D of 50,000 a
Yeah,
year.
you started to go down there, and I don't mean to get you on a tangent. I'm just saying, don't forget about those other things, because
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I still would like, to the extent John and Ellen can give us, graphs from the survey with bullet points. And I mean, very brief bullet points. I'd like to see those at the next meeting, only because we are running out of time. If those raise a question that we want to push more numbers for, or think about pushing more numbers for, I think we really got to decide that.
I'm worried that we haven't all dug into it
Yeah.
yet. That's why I've been
Fair,
asking.
I mean, I
fair
think
question. Can I, just for clarification purposes, there are two things we can do, probably more. One is chart up every response to every survey question, right?
Yep.
That's one, how do people feel about, progressive tax, whatever. The other is sharing the analytics that we did to get that Ellen and I have both been through in detail together. I think we need to share the output of those analytics with you. I just, if we spend time taking every question in the survey and charting it up and answering the bullets, we can do that. I just don't know how informative it's going to be. If there are specific ones that people want to know about, maybe that's an option, or we can do it for all of them. I'm not sure.
I don't want,
Ellen, any thoughts on that actually?
I don't want you to spend oodles of time about it. Is it possible to simply give us the distribution of the answers to each question?
The data is easy. The bullets are the part that's tougher.
Well, I mean, at least if I could see the graphs, I'd like.
Yeah, I think if we all saw the graphs, we might be able to help you. I mean,
Okay.
it just that we might be able to say, oh, focus on these 6 questions. this is what we're really, kind of overlapping with our other information, and these other ones don't matter. We may be, I think it just will narrow it down.
All right, that works.
Great.
I'd also like to see the data from the assessors on the 3.2 million or 2.9. Like, is it all landlords? Is it who's in that 2.9? I don't think we answered that question yet. Like, is it 2 million of that landlords and 900,000 of smaller homes? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
or just people who didn't apply? Like, if 80% of it's landlords, then that begs the question to do more research in the landlords. Like, I haven't seen any of that either.
Yeah, we've got, so Kathy, to that point, Ellen and I have some estimates on that. It's the short answer is on landlords specifically is it's around 900,000 to $1 million is coming from them. And there's also a ton of unaccounted for folks that we don't know who they are.
Just
But-
didn't apply.
Yeah, they just didn't apply. Exactly.
And did she give you that by the house value range or no? She just
Yeah,
gave you a
we've got
number.
it yeah. So Ellen has done a great job of saying, who didn't qualify above and below the break even, who's paying above and below the break even, and so on. So we've got all that data. We can walk you all through all of it. I guess the question I was asking more earlier, which maybe wasn't, was how much of your ask is the quantitative part, like driving the numbers in terms of our math, that's getting to how efficient or effective it is, versus the qualitative, which is the overall perspective of the town on some of those subjects. And maybe the answer is both, but I guess that was my prior question.
Eventually, the answer is both, but could you start giving us pieces so we can wrap our head around what you're seeing?
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like the quantitative. Like you said, John, like your analysis already that you've done, like where is that from? And do we have a percentage of high net worth individuals that are in this $1 million home versus, you have some like just your whatever is bringing you
We
to
have
that
all that data.
conclusion. So we just need to see it. Yeah.
Yep, we have all that data.
All right, so John and Ellen, let me know. Well, actually, Ellen, you're putting the agenda together for the next meeting. So you guys decide what you feel comfortable presenting next time.
It looks like Ellen might have dropped off. I'm not sure.
All right.
All right, but yes, I will connect with Ellen. We'll walk you through the full math. Well, at whatever level of detail you want, but know that Ellen and I are aligned on it. But we'll walk you through the full math and also share with you what we saw on the qualitative.
All right, so can we turn to the draft chapter sections that I distributed? I'd like to start with the one that Abby and Kathy sent us, which provided this really lovely snapshot about the market, the real estate market in Concord. I thought the story was really interesting. It's probably a story we know, but it was nice to see it written up. From an econ perspective, it was nice to see the story told in terms of supply and demand, high demand for a high value town like Concord, but limited supply of affordable entry points into the town. I thought that story was told well. The question I guess I would have is some of the graphs that you show further into the section on sales prices, and the amount of time on the market, but especially sales prices. Can we get similar data from other towns? Was one
Absolutely. Yep. And this was sort of a mock-up. It's super easy if I know what you all respond to and say that we need this. I can do it for, I highlighted that there's some other towns. If you look at the tax burden, the graph that has the blue at the top and it shows, Bedford, Brookline, Carlisle, Concord. Those are also, it's something, Lynn, you said you had access to this type of data, but that shows some of, how we compare to some other towns that are either proximity, like close to us, like Bedford, Carlisle, but also some towns that are considered the most expensive towns to live in Metro West. So if there are certain towns, it's hard for me to put it all on one chart with this, same 5 towns, but I can do separate charts if there are certain towns we want to focus on. I just
So,
don't want to
Abby,
be all over the place.
let me just interrupt because I circulated some tables, one of which was comparing residential and commercial tax rates for, I think, 11 different communities, drawing from the same database you were drawing from. And so I compared what the tax bill for a $1 million home would look like across those communities, and then also what the average single family tax bill is.
Okay.
Because we often hear complaints about Concord being having one of the highest average single family tax bills. And that's true. But another way of looking at it is to look at the residential tax rate and see for I don't know if $1 million is a starter home. That sounds high to me. But anyway, it was an easy number to take. For a $1 million home, Concord's tax bill at just over 13,000 is really in the middle of the pack.
Exactly. That's what this chart, I read that from this chart that I inserted as well. So I'm glad we have it. And it doesn't, if it's redundant, we can take this out. But what I thought was very interesting was looking at these towns that are also, that are similar in different ways to Concord in proximity, or the types of buyers that go look at it, or the types of people that live there. If we look at the average tax bill as a percentage of income, we're like right in the middle.
Right.
At 11.49, whereas Brookline is at 25.65, and the Dover, which is a very expensive town by real estate standards, is 6.45. So I think there's different ways to look at affordability, but this was one way that I was getting at how do we compare in the same metrics of affordability to other towns that are similar in Metro West.
But the question I was asking before, Abby, was about real estate data.
Yes. So I can add, where it says Concord sale price and average per square foot sale price, I could do that for any other town. It's hard to get it so it is multiple towns on one page, but I mean, I could do a series of 4 towns or something. And the same with the other graphs. Those are all, it's MLS data. So it's not every single sale in town. It's all the sales that have gone through the multiple listserv, which is the majority, the vast majority. It's representative, but it doesn't capture private sales. So those are some examples of what I can do. And I did it for Concord, and I focused on 2019 to 2025 because we have a full year, and it went back pre-COVID by 1 year. I just thought that was important because real estate did change quite a bit in kind of 2021. So tell me, as a group, what other towns, from other sections of our report, what other towns would be good to hit on?
So this gets me back to the 20 towns that have an RTE and how comparable are any of them to Concord? And the answer really is none of them are.
Right.
No, I think you have to look at the ones that people,
The Metro West reference towns.
and they're ones that we talked to. Look at Lexington.
Look at Sudbury.
Sudbury, look at Bedford, look at Acton. We talked to all of them.
Yep.
So we have detail on kind of their thinking about how they've approached.
So that's an interesting
Okay.
sample. And we compared to those 4 towns that don't have an RTE, does Concord look different in terms of sale price trends?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But another dimension that I was wondering, and I don't think the MLS data can tell us this. I mean, I know it can't. I'm really interested in this concept of the distribution of home values within a town. And we can get that from our assessor's database, right? If we single out just for single family homes. Assessor databases are available on many assessor department websites. Is it worth trying to do that analysis to show how different the distribution of values is in other towns?
My hope is that we can qualitatively explain that. I don't know that we need to prove that. The outcome is the break even. I mean, that is the result,
Yep.
right? So if we just explain that the reason the break even is 2.4 million is because of this, that's
Yeah.
factual. right? So I don't think we need to do a ton of analysis to prove that.
So we don't need other towns to compare Concord to?
I don't think so. We could just pull the break evens from other towns, but the simple fact that the break even's $2.4 million kind of highlights one of the an issue with it around inefficiency.
I mean,
But
the
also is
break
why
even-
it's so effective. It's the same thing. The 2.4 million is why it's both effective and inefficient.
Yes.
No, I would argue that the 2.4 million is a point in our favor. In other words, it's like Nantucket. You know, nobody worries about raising the tax bill for somebody with a $20 million house. And here, you know, I'm not saying that that it isn't, you know, yes, it is inefficient, but my problem is not with the houses over 2.4 million. It's the houses that are getting it where there's a $200,000 or $300,000.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
I think
Rich.
that's a huge
Totally
part of
agreed.
our findings that we're all saying in our different sections
Yes.
is that the inefficiency, the blunt instrument aspect of the RTE, which is that it's getting distributed to people who either don't need it or are in that middle section that are, it's not the intention of the RTE.
Right. I think you said it, you encapsulated the concern.
Yeah.
Yes. Other comments for Abby and Kathy on this section?
Abby, and maybe I missed it, but one thing that I focused on that you keep saying, which I, you know, is I sure true, but I didn't see it as clearly as you said it, is that when people are considering buying a home, they consider the total tax bill in relation to their ability to carry, you know, housing related costs. It's not, does it have an RTE or does it have some, you know,
Yeah.
mean
That came out in our discussions with realtors more, just in their, you know, we don't always have a direct line into what a buyer's thinking for other than my specific buyers. But in Kathy and my discussions with some realtors, it was consistent that the RTE itself does not come up really at all, but that the overall taxes can come up as a point of, you know, how they're gonna, whether they can afford the house or not.
But Abby, you also said realtors expressed a desire for clearer standardized talking points on the RTE to better respond to client questions is the way you wrote it, but also to better sell lower priced homes below the break even point in Concord. Right? I mean, that people don't ask questions about the RTE because hardly anyone knows anything about it. Only 20
Right.
towns in the
I
Commonwealth.
think not just realtors, I think townspeople
Sure.
want more information about it. I don't think, you know, so many of these realtors live in town. So some realtors actually said, well, I don't know enough about it. And, you know,
Right.
so any education on it there was certainly a call for education on the RTE as a whole. I think there's been some people who in town who have seen it as a complete, you know, blunt force instrument, and it like, how can we possibly have this? It doesn't make any sense financially to have something that's not targeting what it's not just hitting the target. That doesn't really come out in the real estate conversations as much as just I've heard that more, and I'm not sure if the survey picked up on this or not, but I've heard that buzz through the town from some of my you know, contacts, not necessarily people looking to sell a home, but I talk with people a lot just about real estate, you know, on the sidelines. And people have expressed to me, many people in town have expressed to me their frustration in when the RTE was implemented because they saw it as sloppy.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would like to see is the fact that, you know, we are not the most expensive town on a per home, standard home basis, the table you have. And what people ask when considering buying a home is, what are the taxes on the kind of home I want? And that I think we have to get across. in addition to the point that, you know, even if we recommend against the RTE, I think we've got to say it wasn't as bad as you thought it was. You know, that a lot of what went on was, you know, a reaction to, particularly at the high end, where we know there were larger increases in valuation. You know, oh my God, how could my taxes go up so much? Well, you know, it wasn't necessarily the RTE.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we may decide we don't want to recommend continuing the RTE, but I think we've got to make it clear that that isn't the big problem in this town.
Yeah, I don't think the RTE itself dissuaded people from buying in
No,
Concord.
exactly. That's what, I mean, that's what I've heard you say.
Yeah, that's true. It's, I mean, people are still buying. There's still plenty of people wanting to come to Concord, and they either don't know about the RTE or don't care about it. So it's not a, I have yet to hear a story of it dissuading people in itself. Taxes, we tend to measure up okay against some of the towns we mentioned. You know, Acton's tax rate is higher. With Concord,
Neighbors is higher.
yes. Yes. So when people look at it as a percentage of what they're buying, they're usually positive about it. But when they look at it as just their cost of living, not necessarily compared to other towns, but just, you know, can I afford this? It comes up as a, you know, people want to, you know, the financial aspect of buying a home is going to come up every time. It's what makes people in a price point or not in a price point. So we still, you know, our median is our median because of the affordability of Concord for some people. It doesn't mean it's affordable for everyone, though.
And I just want to say, like, as far as like the realtors not understanding it, you know, they don't understand it because if you buy the home, it doesn't go with the property. I think Abby wrote that in her thing.
Yeah.
So even if you buy a house for $1
Mm.
million in Concord, and if you buy it, depending on the time of year, you're out a whole year of higher taxes. So they can't tell someone that you benefit because you won't benefit for a whole extra year depending on when you buy it. So they don't bring it up for that reason also. So they want to know how to talk about it
Sure.
so that they can say, okay, you're actually going to be hosed for a year, but you'll be better in the next year, but you'll never get the year back. So just so they don't even want to talk about it is my point. They don't even want to talk about it because there's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line conclusion is the RTE has not, you know, created a skewing of the real estate. I mean,
Mhm.
it is what it is. The arguments for and against it are equity types of arguments. They're not really arguments that.
Which the select board will be interested to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I think any issues are more qualitative because it was another straw on the camel's back
Yeah.
than factual, right? It's a perfect storm thing,
Yeah.
right?
But I guess I'll also say that we only have 3 years and we don't have a real estate trend yet. We're still coming out of the pandemic. That also happened. So give 3 more years.
Yeah.
I think our conclusion in the real estate is we don't know yet because there's nothing, it's not been in enough time to really show any impact, but that doesn't mean there won't be some down the road.
Right, but I think that's, you know, also where, you know, the data that we saw earlier from Abby that showed that people are not selling homes in Concord at any higher rate than they are comparable towns.
But we
Oh,
don't-
there were definitely people who came looking to sell their home in 2023 when they got their tax bill. They immediately went to, oh my gosh, this changed my whole, you know, financial plan. So that did happen, but it was based on the reassessments, and then also on top of it, RTE, the
I
perfect
think-
storm.
I don't, would the RTE, Abby, from your perspective, would the RTE on its own drive any real estate trends?
I mean, it's not big enough to really drive real estate trends, but the concept is, I mean, people
Yeah.
do look for towns that are tax friendly, you know, that have, I mean, Concord, we we have a lot to offer for what people pay in taxes. So schools, trails, you know, there's good town infrastructure. There's a lot taxes are going somewhere that people can stand behind when they're buying Concord. They're looking for those types of things. So it's, but when they go up in a spike, it doesn't
Mhm.
sit well with people because that wasn't their plan. They weren't planning on it.
But Abby, I'm looking at your second Concord average sale price graph. And for 2023, the line graph for unit
Mhm.
sold actually went down.
Mm-hmm.
While it may have horrified people that their assessments went up and thus their tax bills, I don't see it reflected in, there wasn't a spike suddenly.
Are you looking at the Concord average sale price, the green?
I don't have it printed in
Oh,
color.
okay. Because one shows units sold went down, but the average sale price was going up. So just, I mean, some of those lines, these were graphs that I can put any two things together, so they don't have to be these exact metrics, but I thought that was interesting that, we had less inventory move, less actual sales, but the sale price was going up. That makes sense. There's one that shows Concord sale price and average square foot, which just goes up at the same rate, roughly, that the size of your home is related to the price of your home. And those were both steadily going up from 2019 and 20. They were going steadily up and continuing till 2025. And then the units listed sold with days on market was just showing how quickly the market is moving, really. And the market was moving very, very quickly between 2021 and 2023, and it started to taper off. I wouldn't say it's, completely plateaued, but it's just a bit of a more balanced market now in sellers and buyers.
Well, the other thing that happened in 2023 is that interest rates started going up again. after
Yes.
Really
Yep.
low. So that affects
That was a big
the ability of people who don't have cash to buy. And it affects the willingness of people to put homes on the market, because anything they buy, they're gonna refinance at a higher rate. So
Yes, and I thought it was very interesting. This was actually that when I got the data, it was sort of shocking to me. I didn't know that, but we had looked at data of how many just of the buyers on MLS, of those that reported, because it doesn't always get reported, how many bought in cash versus how many financed.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it is incredible how many cash buyers we have had steadily, even after the rates have gotten a little better. There's this steady increase of cash buyers, even above 3 million. That was the shocking part, just the high end cash buyers. I will say we're coming into this, talk about a perfect storm. So we have baby boomer generational money, wealth coming into the market. And it's a trend you'll see if you read the Wall Street Journal or any financial paper. You'll see there's this their markets are talking about generational wealth being passed down. And there's a sector of the baby boomer generation that has made this is going to sound gross, but more money than they know what to do with, and it's going to get passed down somewhere, whether it gets donated or passed down to their children. But we're starting to see trends around that, not just in Concord, but which to me would explain some of the cash buying at the high end.
well, yeah, that I think, plus in the Boston area in that period, you've got a lot of IPOs. I mean, I can think of a couple of examples of people in their 40s who bought a beautiful home somewhere in west of town after they cashed out their Facebook stock. And I think there's more of that than usually. And the third piece at the lower end of the market is less here than elsewhere in the country, is corporations buying homes for rentals, figuring out that people can't borrow money to buy a home.
Yeah.
So
Right.
we've got the cash, we'll buy it and we'll rent it to you.
Do you see corporate buying in Concord, Abby?
So
I see buying from international buyers that are buying for their portfolio. I've seen not corporate buying so much, but definitely generational, parents buying for their kids that are, in their late 20s, early 30s, that are coming into it. And also, as Rich said, people who've done very well in their 30s and they can just afford to buy something that's in the higher end of things. So, while the average age of buyers nationally has gone up, we are seeing some of this, activity in the younger buyers coming into the market as well.
Do
So
we have that data for Concord, the average age of buyers?
I don't. I had the national data.
Yeah, the national data was really interesting. I wonder if we're different.
I would doubt it. I mean, I think we've got a few of the,
Exceptions that
of the
Abby's-
IPO.
Yeah, there's probably exceptions.
My guess is that the trend is the same, but the average age is higher.
Well, the average age is definitely higher. This is an older and continuing to age town.
And wealthier on average.
Listen, in terms of looking at the clock and realizing that we've kind of taken up all of our time, may I suggest, Abby, that if people have particular questions or comments, they put them in an email to you? Is that all right?
That would be great. I'd love to refine this and get it, how we want it for the final.
Excellent. Thank you. And then in terms of the other two sections, you had seen earlier drafts from both Rich and from me. We can talk about them next time. Rich fleshed his out rather substantially. One question I had for you, Rich, and for the group really is, how much of our interview information should we be sharing in this? This will eventually become a public document. There was a comment.
I sort of had that in the back of my mind. And in most cases, I didn't think it was a problem. The Marlboro interview was the only one where I thought, maybe somebody wouldn't want to trace that.
There was a
The
comment
other-
about Bedford and the election for the Board of Assessors, and there was some.
Well, but that I think was sort of public. I mean, because they came back and said, we can't do that, but we can do this.
What did we say to people when we interviewed them?
Say again?
What
Did we tell
say
people
to
it was going to be
people?
anonymous or no?
Well, we did not say it was anonymous. But, I mean, my intent was not to list
Yeah.
individual, although. in a
We're
couple
certainly not mentioning names.
Names, but we do say, we talked to
Assessor,
the
yeah.
assessor or somebody, Board of Assessors or somebody who was on the study.
I need to read it again
Yeah,
with
why-
that in my mind.
I'm gonna suggest that somebody other than you or me read it because we did it. And
Yeah.
Wendy, why,
I did read it. It's really good.
yeah, but if
Read it
you
with a
think,
different eye,
if you
yeah.
think there's something there that's going to generate a $10 billion lawsuit,
Yeah, I'll
flag
read
it,
it again.
flag it now if you would.
Yeah.
That would help. Thanks.
And I continue to refine my section. I didn't have work off programs, for instance, in there. And so I've added that. Also, we got data from Meredith about the number of beneficiaries for each of the programs. So that's been added.
Yeah.
So that's of interest. And we'll continue to work on things over the next weeks.
Yeah,
It's
no, I think
really good.
Yeah.
Great work.
ultimately, we're gonna have something that, even regardless of what we say, is in fact far more analytic than what Lexington is.
Yes. Actually. That's very good.
Yeah.
Wherever we come down.
All right. Well, all of that sounds good. I would ask whether Wendy or Carly has any comments for us as additional voices here at the table.
I don't, I see. Shared what I
You
thought.
have. Yeah. Thank you. Carlin?
No, sounds good. Thanks, Lynn, for talking with me about the finance committee information and getting me out in square. I'm going to be using some of that information in the finance committee report that I'm doing.
Happy to contribute. No, I mostly was happy that someone else looked at it carefully and wanted to make sure the numbers were right. And if you could follow where they came from, then I was very pleased. Thank you, Carlin, for taking the time and for working that through with me yesterday.
Just wondered who put that.
Well, I did, and she right away responded and said, wait a minute, where did those numbers come from? And so we had a nice conversation yesterday and worked through it. So if I see that in the FinCom report, it will make me smile.
Do you want me to give you attribution?
Please don't, because I think yours will come out before ours.
Yeah, it will. It will. Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
I mean, we discussed it yesterday. The source is FinCom reports from the last 5 fiscal years.
Yeah, but I hate that it shows that there's an error in that report, or should I say an inconsistency?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, I have to deal with that. So anyway,
If-
thanks again, Lynn.
If you come across the actual appropriations for this fiscal year in a draft of that table that we were looking at, but
Yeah, I will.
I only have the proposed figures for FY26. So if you happen to come across the actual numbers, it'd be great if you could pass them along, and then we can have the a cleaner table on our side.
Absolutely. I'll be sending a draft of it to my committee, and it'll be a public document at the next FinCom meeting. So February 19. Yeah,
Okay, excellent. I'll be looking for it. Thank you.
sure.
All right. Anything else people want to raise? Our next meeting is a morning meeting. I think all of the remaining meetings are morning meetings. So we will see you in 2 weeks at 8:30 here.
So, because I was unclear about when things ended here on a meeting thing, and I was the one who sent the meeting invites, I did send them for April. So I just want to make sure so that we're not doing too much going back and forth. Our last, and I know we did mention that we might need additional
You
time.
might. Don't worry about it. Leave them there for now.
Okay, just leave them for now.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see where we are.
Okay. So
And then
just if you see April meetings, don't ignore them, folks. They were already on there. I haven't changed them, but just because I was unclear, and I
I mean,
apologize.
I'm a bit relieved because I know that the March vacation week is going to come toward the end of the month. And I know for some people that's an important week away. And of course, the same is true for the April vacation week. So we'll just have to juggle.
Yeah.
And-
So
and
there you
do
go. So they're on there. So I'm just going to leave them. They're through April 30th,
But
technically.
to
right
be
now.
clear, our select board liaison
Sorry.
did request that we get a presentation to the select board before town meeting.
Yes.
So that would be before the 3rd week of April.
Right.
And Wendy and I had tentatively talked about April 13 as a possible presentation date.
Okay.
And, I would also say that I think we can do a presentation without having a final edited report in hand. Because by then we should be prepared to present our findings.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Yay. Thank you very much, everyone.